And for this interview, I have Jeff Burandt. I'm going to be interviewing him on his Kickstarter comic Killer Bad. How's it going, Jeff?
Hi, how are you, Brian? Thank you for having me on.
Hey, it's my pleasure, man. So how you been?
Good. I just, we're recording at, I don't know how often we peek behind the scenes, but we're recording at the end of my work day. So I just finished work, and it's hot in New York, like we were talking about. So, instead of cracking a beer, I'm talking to you.
Oh man, I could probably use like a soda right now. I have several up in the fridge cooling, but oh well.
Sure. But I'm good. I'm excited. I'm excited to be on this podcast. Thank you.
Hey, it's my pleasure, man. So we're here to talk about your comic Killer Bad, which is a really unique comic. And what I like about it is just that I'm into horror. I'm also into superheroes, but it's two of my
Cool.
favorite things mashed together, and it goes perfectly like peanut butter and jelly. I mean,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
so. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to fund Killer Bad #1. It will be the first of three, and this first one. So each one will be a superhero horror mashup. They're three interconnect. They're three standalone, done in one stories that are 30 years apart, and so each one has references a different horror genre, and this first one is the slasher flick. And so, yeah, it's a team of outlaw superheroes, a la X Force or the Boys. Uh,
Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad dropping in on an island to get a powerful artifact when they start getting slaughtered one by one by a super slasher serial killer.
Well, that's crazy. I mean, like that's a really cool concept. I mean, who would ever think about like a superhero being in a slasher movie? And you kind of wonder, like, just this a little bit. You kind of wonder too, like, who's gonna be the first
Yeah,
to get killed? Who's gonna survive? It's like all these questions just pop up in my head, like any other slasher fic. And
yes,
sometimes it becomes like, for me personally, like when I watched Evil Dead, it's like that was like my first horror movie actually was Evil Dead. I mean, I
okay,
seen Scream when I was a kid. I mean,
sure.
but Evil Dead was like actually like when I really
And,
started to get
and the
into
first
horror.
one, not the second one. That's a remake of the first one. Do you
The
know?
second the second one was the first one I saw with Bruce
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah,
Campbell.
yeah.
And
Of
like
course.
I read a lot of interviews that he did with Evil Dead, and he talked about like how I think he talked about like how they didn't really expect Ash to survive, but Ash did. He was like, the unexpected. I think I saw that somewhere where they didn't really think he was going to survive. I mean, with most horror flicks, you really don't think, you don't really know who's going to survive at the end. If they do survive,
Right.
it's always the
But you
average dude
also,
or some other random, you know,
yeah, you've got what it's called, the final girl. No,
or the
even though
final girl. Yeah.
they're not always women now.
And I felt like when I read the preview, I actually read the preview of Killer Bad, and it had those vibes where it was just like everything's like all good and cheery, and like they're cracking a
Yeah,
couple jokes, probably laughing
yeah,
at each other, but then that shit's about to hit the fan,
yeah,
and
yeah. It turns very quickly. I think in the preview you get just to the heroes arrive, and there's
yeah,
also, interestingly enough, some at least one page I think missing from that preview that is another like peek behind the curtain of what's going on while you're reading it, where we were able to just throw together the main action sequence for the preview, to show off that amazing splash page we get to of all the characters just leaping out of the plane.
I like that image, and actually, speaking of those drawings, I noticed that they were kind of reminiscent of Rob Liefeld. I feel like there's a lot of Liefeld influences in there from what I've
Yes,
seen,
sure.
and Jim Lee.
Yeah,
And
it's. I mean, we are directly doing a '90s thing on purpose. There's a lot of, the book doesn't take itself very seriously.
mhm,
There are a lot of '90s references and puns and jokes. We've got our mulleted character. We've got our character in the leather jacket wearing superhero tights underneath. So we're doing a lot. One of our characters. So the group, the outlaw group, the X Force or the Suicide Squad is called the Six Squad Six.
I like that.
Um, and so And in fact, if you look on that splash page, that is page 6, right? And you look, they're forming a 6. There's some 666 imagery in that
Oh, I didn't
in
even
that
notice
splash
that.
page because it's page 6. They're forming a 6, and there's one other that I actually can't think of off the top of my head at the moment. But
That is pretty
um,
subtle.
yeah, for your listeners only. But uh, so yeah, the Six Squad 6. They're brash and kind of like in a slasher movie. I don't know, they're kind of assholes. But one of the characters is named Ice Baby, and she is a Dutch ninja with ice powers. And so our tagline about her is she'll steal your lyrics that freeze your heart. And so, we have her referencing 90s hip hop and things like that.
Vanilla Ice, yeah. I didn't even notice that either. I was like, wow, that is like a subtle reference, like an Easter egg.
Yeah, it's kind of full of those. If you on the Kickstarter, we're going to have a process. We do have a process junkie tier where we're going to annotate a part of the process junkie will to annotate the book, and so I'll reveal all the answers and hidden gems like in the back of a highlights magazine.
Oh, I remember highlights. My sister actually used to collect those.
Yeah, they're on my brain because my 3-year-old got a stack of them, so I've been like interacting with them again.
Oh yeah. I mean, very good magazines.
And then so what you're seeing there is, it turns very quickly from the preview. Once we hit the ground, the mayhem begins. So it's a very straightforward book. And then we start to unpeel and layer in the subsequent books, and you get to find out like what's behind everything, what's really happening, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I read the preview, and it just looks really awesome, especially with the drawings and like I guess in itself it's kind of like I feel like this book's kind of a parody of like the '90s. I feel from what it sounds like.
It's definitely a love letter. Like it's not, it's taking it seriously, I think, but
When it doesn't take itself seriously.
Yeah, but it's also self-aware. Like we're not hiding the fact that we're referencing the '90s. We're definitely having fun with it. I do think it's a fun book, which is kind of for me like the best part. Like I love schlocky gore movies that are funny and cool.
Slapstick.
I really love that. Have you happened to watch the Fear Street trilogy that's on Netflix right now?
I haven't seen that.
They release. I mean, they're all out now, but they released each movie, exclusively to Netflix, like every week or every 2 weeks or something like that. And similarly, they're connected through dates and time. But it's this like trilogy of bonkers slasher movies. It is surprisingly good. It's really well done and very gory. And so I don't know. I have an affinity for it, and I was hoping maybe you'd seen it.
Right. I mean, I feel like I probably should take a look at it.
It's okay. Check it out.
Fear Street, is it?
Recommendation if you like funny gore.
Like like going back to The Evil Dead. I mean, like I feel like that was like a lot of slapstick, especially the part where he cuts off the hand and it goes on the chick's face and all that. And she's like,
Or Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
Freddy Krueger. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, they became pretty zany and where he's almost like a Bugs Bunny character, and because he's always got something to say.
And always something up his sleeve too. Like Freddy Krueger, there's no way you can really outsmart the guy because like he gets inside your head, and once he's inside your head,
he's already in your head.
Yeah, like it's hard to beat him. And and Robert Englund, I think, really did. I mean, that's a role that he immortalized. I mean, like.
Sure.
Yeah, totally.
I think maybe our super slasher could take Freddy because. I don't want to talk too much about him, but he has a very unique power set that I don't think. So I should also say that Jason Gongor is the artist. He's doing an amazing job.
Oh yeah.
He's actively. I think also it looks like Capcom versus X-Men, the coin op, also from the '90s, like that kind of manga inspired.
Yeah.
Because he's painting it himself too, and so it has that like that, I don't know, it looks like the side of Capcom versus X-Men from like, 99 or something. And
Yeah.
then I totally just interrupted myself. I had no idea what I was talking about.
Well, I mean, like we were kind of talking about, like, I guess Freddy Krueger or something.
Oh, and the weird power set that would allow our big bad to take on Freddy. I don't know. It might be a good fight. I can't say anymore.
Any
No
fight with Freddy
spoilers.
Krueger's a good fight. I mean, shoot.
Sure.
I mean, Ash even took on Freddy.
I did, and it was a Dynamite series, right?
It was a Dynamite. I
In the
think it was a
comics.
Dynamite series. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got like maybe a free comic day, like 0 issue or something from that, but I never read any further.
Wow. I mean, I think like with some of the Evil Dead comics I've read Army of Darkness versus Marvel Zombies, which I thought was a really good one.
I did too. Yeah, I read that one. I remember that one.
Yeah, and then let's see. I did read like maybe one Evil Dead comic, but I forgot what it was about though. I think it was like about
Yeah,
Ash versus Ash or something.
yeah. Ash must be a very fun character to write and kind of
Oh, he's a very
convince the
fun
mouth off.
character.
I mean, he's like, yeah, he's a father of Deadpool in a way. you know, goofy, somewhat self-aware. Like at least he looks at camera a couple times, I think.
Like the breaking fourth wall, and I think honestly a lot of what makes Ash so awesome was just that a lot of people can relate to him. He's just an average guy. Like
True. Yeah,
he
that's right.
works at S-Mart. He has a normal job, and like he goes through everyday problems, and he feels like he's not being special, but in fact he is someone special.
Yeah,
He's just like that reluctant hero, and I think that's what makes him really appealing.
gotcha. Agreed.
And going back to the superheroes, I mean, you kind of get a little bit of that vibe too, where even with the main character, I think his name is Warwound, I believe it is, right?
Yeah, War Wounds. He's our rookie. He's kind of our. We don't know what happened, but there always has to be 6 members to the Squad 6, right? And
Yeah.
so one has recently been eliminated in one way or another. So he's been brought in by there's this the group that operates uh, them is called Mission. It's just a generic Mission Control or
Amanda Waller,
Mission Command.
basically.
Mission Command rather. So Mission Command sends them to where they go, brings in new recruits. We don't really know what their status is in this first one.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm looking at it right now with the splash page. I mean, we got War Wound, we have Gigantic Little, who I feel might be the comic relief. Death Cheater, who kind of has like you find out that he has a bone to pick with War Wound, and
Uh,
Ice Baby, like we've talked, like the aforementioned Ice Baby. We have Haxer Computer. Let's see, Haxer the
Hacksaw, he's a
computer
computer expert. Yeah.
computer expert, and then like you got Break Speed, who's sort of like a combination between the Flash and Superman, or
Yeah.
Rick Flag even too. I mean, one can
Well,
argue.
his look is kind of 90s Cyclops meets. Have you ever heard of Dark Hawk?
Mm-mm.
Dark Hawk, 90s character, similar visor and helmet.
Darkhawk.
So I know, yeah, it's gonna be that's gonna go in the annotations. when you order the book, you'll get finally learn what the hell I was talking about on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm looking at a pic of Darkhawk right now, and it looks like, yeah, it kind of looks like a Boba Fett, sort of Judge Dredd,
Sure.
Jam or something.
Uh-huh.
Maybe mixed with like Hawkman or something too, with the wings and all that.
Yeah. So he was a 90s Marvel character that they. I don't know. He comes back like once every 8 years or so, briefly.
Wow. So I noticed, like, with the art of Killer Bad, it it seems like it was inspired by, like I mentioned, Liefeld and Prophet. I mean, in addition to the writing, wasn't the art also intended to bring that '90s feel back as well?
100%. I mean, the whole project spun out of Jason and I have been working on a longer project in the background, and this derailed us. We got very excited about it. We were at a meeting at lunch in Brooklyn talking about what we were working on at the time, and we started talking about, I think, our love of Spawn and the impact of Rob Liefeld on our teenage brains when he started drawing at Marvel. And so yeah, then we were talking about all those image guys, about Jim Lee and Eric Larson. Mark Silvestri is one of my all-time favorites.
Todd McFarlane.
Him, obviously McFarlane. And so he's, Jason started whipping out, like he had these drawings. He already had like some character designs and some ridiculous names that he'd come up with. Like I think War Wound is from that initial batch. And so then I just went home and started writing the script and just coming up with it. And now here we are. It's like probably 2.5 years later.
Oh wow! So it took this project was 2 years in the making.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I had to write it, and he's had to draw it, and yeah, and we both have jobs otherwise, so
exactly.
Yeah, so and so it was very organic, and it derailed us in a lot of ways. At the time we were also together doing a lot of short stories that were getting published together in heavy metal and in that AOC comic from Devil's Due, and that there was a Megadeth omnibus like 2 years ago. So that was all, we were working together in one way or another through all of those, which was already derailing this one project, and then this also popped in, and we just got super excited about it and had to make this first issue.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I mean, and speaking of making the first issue, like, what was the inspiration behind making Killer Bad?
Well, definitely all these 90s comics we were talking about. And a big part of it for me, too, was, how to get that 90s imagery and then also write something that I enjoyed and that maybe was a little more, like, postmodern and was going to play with different structures and was more, like, I could do what I wanted and really play with irony and 90s sarcasm. I don't know. I hope I was able to kind of elevate what is a pretty simple, straight through storyline with like other textures and stuff. And so a big part of it was just being inspired to write something that I thought would gain in complexity as the series goes too. Like I keep saying, this first one is straight up carnage. You want to see pretty good looking superheroes who are kind of assholes, like get theirs. This is a comic for you. And then the rest of the stories come out from that. And so so that was a big inspiration. And then, like I said, Jason just having a lot of these ideas already, and then also this was an idea that I'd been working on. I mean, I'd had a lot of the elements in this story come from one of the first comics I ever tried to write while I was in college in the early 90s. And so I was able to go, once Jason started feeding me this stuff, I was like, okay, I have this. And that was like a more straightforward comic of its time, also written by like a 19-year-old dope. And so, but I was able to kind of like purloin some of those ideas, the whole revenge story, from some of the character tropes, and because I was obviously blatantly ripping off, not even aware that I was ripping off all the things I was actually reading at the time, which is the stuff. Now I'm like hyper aware of it and doing it on purpose. So I was able to lift that stuff out. And so it came together very quickly. It was just very, like the scripts, I was able to knock out the whole script, the entire script pretty quickly. And then it was about finding time in Jason's schedule to make all this beautiful artwork.
Wow, and like so, whenever you teamed with Jason and did all the wrote the story and he did the artwork, did you like pretty much write based on like what he drew, or do you have an idea of like what was going to be in the story, or was it vice versa? Did you give him like the what you were writing and what you expected, or?
I mean, he had these character designs. We came up with the characters and their names first. Other than Break Speed was my character with a different name for this other project. He was like the lead in that. So Break Speed, the speedster. And so his plot is definitely. Excuse me, I just burped.
It's all good, man.
His plot was one of the things I was able to excise for these books was Break Speeds, and so I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I mean, like, so you came up with the designs for you came up with the names for the characters first,
Right.
and then.
What came first? Right. So I was able to overlay some of this stuff, and so coming up with the concept, then it was just a matter of because I think we had more than like 6 ideas for this team. Or rather, there were more than 6 characters and character names that were whipping around in this initial batch of just like character creation. And so I think actually we utilized those characters in subsequent issues. So I think we end up using everybody in one way or another that we came up with that in these initial like jam meetings. But so then it was just a matter of kind of coming up with our main 6 for the team, and then there's also Molly X. She's one of kind of the behind the scenes manipulators. She's a low level telepath who makes you we say she makes you feel dumb and horny, and then she turns you into a supervillain. And so she's kind of like an evil scientist type hiding in the background of everything that's going on. And so she also, a very different version of her, but that same idea of a woman being able to make you like kind of trip with her powers, and that's how she would knock you out or whatever, but adding kind of now the sexual element with ecstasy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was able to bring her in. I don't know, it just all came together very quickly and very organically once then we knew with these 3 story ideas that I wanted to do, because then it was just placing these different characters and the roles they kind of had to inhabit.
Yeah, it sounds like, it almost sounds like it, like you said, it came organically and it works. Like the fact that you have that behind the scenes character, which I like these kind of stories, with someone playing, someone being the chess player. Like you wouldn't expect them to be the chess player, but they are. And I felt like it was kind of like that with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It wasn't just a battle against Hydra or whatever, or the remnants of Hydra, if you will. It was basically Baron Zemo who was just playing everybody. He was playing, he was an ultimate chess player. The dude was a freaking genius with how he just played both sides against one another just to achieve his goal. And the interesting thing about these people who are behind the scenes is just that they have an ultimate goal that not even the hero, or especially the hero, but definitely the villain doesn't know about. Right. And I love those kind of stories. And you see, those stories I enjoy. Like the Palpatine behind the scenes in Star Wars, how he played both sides against one each other, just brilliant. Not cool, but brilliant.
Then I think you're gonna. That's what we build to in issue 3. Is we finally get to see who's behind the curtain for all
the wizard behind the curtain.
The wizard behind the curtain for all the craziness of issues 1 and 2.
And I love excuse me, I love those kind of stories where, it's like it just comes out of nowhere. It's like, whoa, like that happened. Or that's who it was. Like throughout that whole time, like the villain was like right there, and we didn't even know. It's like that. I love those kind of stories, man. And let's see.
That's great having a collaborator like Jason, where we're also really close to each other, and live in the same city, and are at least pre-pandemic, we're able to go hang out and be friends, and so that we can come up with these things more organically in the first place.
That's one of the good things about the pandemic, I would say. Not to say, of course, the pandemic was good, though, but I think it gave people a lot of time to, like, kind of regroup and, like, come up with, like, brilliant ideas, and especially on a creative level.
Definitely able, with me and some of my collaborators, also Sean Von Gorman and I, knocked out a comic in that time that then got picked up by a publisher, which I can't talk about further yet. But so yeah, it was, you know, me and a few people were able to make some moves and finish some work during that time.
That's awesome. So like we talked about the process behind making Killer Bad and everything, and you said that it took about, I say, 2 years, right?
Well, I'm talking 2 years from like this initial like conversation, you know, over lunch to
Lunch.
it probably, you know, and then other projects come in and you work on those, you know, because they're paying a page rate or whatever. And then so then this one came back, I would say, during the pandemic, because we were having to make choices. We had this pitch going around with some success, but we need to make more, and so it was became a choice between, all right, do we make this thing we're really excited about real quick, which is much shorter, which we can hopefully finish in a shorter amount of time, or do we continue to chisel away at this thing where we've gotten some verbal green lights with, but you got to make more of it first. And so we went with, especially with the rise of Kickstarter, we were like, let's try this thing. We've already got the other thing in our back pocket and still like moving around, so why not work on this that, I don't know, has, and that also that Jason was more a part of, whereas on our other project, you know, it was something that I'd worked on with a previous artist and gotten it published in an image anthology in a short called Blood and Brains. So this is like the full-length version of that story that Jason then came onto. So I had it already all. I mean, the scripts were already finished when he came on.
Wow.
And some character designs were done and stuff like this. So this was an opportunity for us to really be co-creators and create this thing together. You know, we're both storytellers in this thing, and
Yeah.
his images write just as much as my, if not more, than my typing in a word processor.
You know, speaking of all that, like, you know, you talked about how you know, formed some of this over lunch. Are there any unique influences where you got from creating the characters, or even, you know, some elements of the story? Like, for instance, like, I think George Lucas told a story about how he came up with the name the Millennium Falcon, or the design of the Millennium Falcon. It was over the fact that he was eating a hamburger during lunch, and that's when he came up with the concept of how the Millennium Falcon looked or how it was shaped.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I can talk more about some of these references. Like Gigantic is named Gigantic for the Pixies song, a very popular Pixies song from that era. Gigantic, a big one. Anyway. So you know, um, a lot of the naming and the naming structures are obviously like those typical first generation image names, Bloodsport, Kill, the, you know, the
Young
two
Bloods.
syllables, yeah, Young Blood, all that. And so so a lot of the characters come from that, and then, you know, you're coming up with these names, and like the power set kind of just comes with it. Or Jason has drawn an ice powered woman, and then I call her Ice Baby, and let's make her a ninja. Like, make her do ice swords instead of just, I don't know. And so, you know, it was that sort of compiling some of these characters, and then, you know, this book, you know, I was talking about, like, I don't know. Sublimating the writing or something, but you know, a lot of what I'm doing too is directly influenced by another early image book, which was Alan Moore's 1963, I believe, which had the same idea of a series of one shots about what I think they were like either Silver Age or 80s type characters, and then each of the stories interconnected that like through, you know, shared characters, or
That's
but there
really
wasn't like
cool.
a direct story from A to D. They all were done in one that all kind of built towards the bigger story. So heavily influenced by that, and also an early image book. And that was because I was influenced by that when I was writing this proto story for this, back when I was, that age, trying to come up with this stuff. So it's definitely the influences. Even as I talk about it now, I haven't even thought about in what ways parts of the story have been with me for half my life.
1963. So I didn't know Alan Moore wrote for Image.
Oh yeah, he did a lot with Image because he did some Rob Liefeld work. He with Supreme. He wrote at least a trade's worth of Supreme, I think, with Rob and others on Art Chores. I think he also did the Violator miniseries for Todd McFarlane for Spawn.
Oh yeah.
So they brought him over, and they're big on creators' rights, right? And he was big on creators' rights, and I think they were able to throw some money at him to work on their.
Of course, Alan Moore would jump at the opportunity. I mean, he would have to. I mean, he's Alan Moore. I mean, I think anybody would. Because, I think Alan Moore, I don't know if this is true, though, but I've heard somewhere where he still has, to this day, still has a bone to pick with DC over Watchmen and all that.
Yeah, right. Yes, because he had a creator-owned deal where the contract says the rights will revert when it goes out of print, and they've never let it go out of print because it was so successful.
And that's why they're doing more Watchmen-related stories or content, like especially with the show and all that just came out in 2019.
I mean, that show was, I think, definitely the best sequel that we've seen. I mean, or the best other Watchmen thing other than Watchmen itself that's come out of all that. I just finished Doomsday Clock.
I liked Doomsday Clock. Doomsday Clock was one of my favorite.
I really like that duo, Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. I really like their Batman Earth 1 stuff together, and I mean, Gary Frank is a master. Oh, and I really like their image book that they're doing right now. What is it called? It's like a radioactive man in a post-apocalyptic world. Geiger. Yeah, like a Geiger counter. It's one of those. Anyway, but I found just redoing the mixing of the deck of DC and Watchmen to be a little tedious. It was I don't know. I didn't want to when I didn't get something, I didn't care enough to go. It was very dense, but it didn't to dive in and figure stuff out.
Right.
What did you love about it? I don't want to poo-poo it.
Doomsday Clock.
Yeah. What
I mean, the fact that my favorite moment of that comic was the fact that Dr. Manhattan met Superman, and that they were starting to get an understanding of one another and how similar they were, and even with Dr. What's his name? No, Ozymandias meeting Lex Luthor. It was like the meeting of the minds. It was like like two parallels, and what they had in common was just that Ozzy was against Dr. Manhattan, just like Lex was against Superman. And in the end of that, Dr. Manhattan thought Superman was going to destroy him, though, but Superman chose not to. And I think it kind of gave him a better perspective of how the main DC universe worked, how they really were. It was not like the Earth that he came from, where it was just it seemed perfect, but it was kind of fragile in a sense.
Yeah.
And then he started giving up his powers. He saw different realities where he didn't become Dr. Manhattan. And then ultimately he gave up all his powers to a young boy who was actually sired by two villains.
Right.
And named him Clark. Spoiler alert. And he gave them over to the second Night Owl and the second Silk Spectra.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty cool. About that's one of my favorite moments of Doomsday Clock.
Yeah, it was bizarre. Yeah, he stole a pair of serial killers' kid.
Yeah,
and gave them to a different family in a different universe.
exactly. And I thought that was really cool, and like named him Clark after Superman, and like
Right.
he had the Doctor Manhattan symbol on his forehead and all that.
Sure.
And I feel, and like also too, like they started to put Watchmen even into the main DC universe. So Doctor Manhattan basically, caused all the events to happen as
Right.
they were, and also to continue to unfold the way they did, where one universe Clark Kent has siblings, and another he's just
That was the most interesting part for me, was the going through how Superman. It was very obviously meta about DC publishing, really, where just as a nature of that universe, Superman is a constant that everything else resets around.
yeah.
And a lot of that imagery of moving through those timelines. I mean, it definitely had its moments, but I also kind of thought it was a chore to get through. But
Yeah.
it was beautiful. I mean, and that's where like Gary Frank is a master. Obviously, Jeff Johns knows what he's doing. It just
Yeah.
felt too like encyclopedic at times to me. Even just visually, it's just so much of like just that, like matching the DC universe with Watchmen on a visual level. It's interesting stuff, at least. Like,
Yeah.
I appreciated the attempt outside of, I'm sure, Alan Moore's high disgust at the idea.
And like they're still doing Watchmen stories to this day. I mean, the new Rorschach comic by Tom King, I think, is pretty good.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
haven't. I only do. I love DC Black Label, but I just wait for the hardcovers.
the trade and all that, like the hardcover trades.
Well, they're nice. The hardcovers are nice. I love that format. Yeah, and I don't have to worry about waiting for the next one.
That's cool. And, going back to Alan Moore, I mean, I feel like with Alan Moore, that guy, I think had a little chat with my sister about him too when she was talking about V for Vendetta and how,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what's been going on right now in our world is kind of similar to what happened in V for Vendetta in a sense. And like,
Sure.
I think that Alan Moore, he was ahead of his time when it came to his like writing and all that. Like with
Sure.
Watchmen, V
Well,
for
he's also
Vendetta.
writing about the politics of his time, though. He's writing about Thatcher's Britain. He's writing about Reagan and the Bush's America, and so I think we're also just seeing a return of a lot of those moments in history, a lot of those themes, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, great. I mean, like, I'm not gonna say he's a crazy writer though, but just totally like, I don't know if he had like a vision of the future or something like that though, but the stuff that he writes, it's like, whoa, like that's actually, that's actually happening right now in a sense. I mean, not to scare anybody, but that's just me though.
There's really a purple squid hitting the earth right now.
Right, squid. Yeah, I know. Like, yeah, squid. And it's just like crap. And how they can use that even. I mean, like squid. Like, oh, there's still aliens running amok when you find out it's actually something else.
Yeah, sure.
So, I'm looking at the Kickstarter right now. If I can just pull it up here.
Please.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the Kickstarter, and it looks like it's almost at its goal. It's almost kicking 5,000 with 18 more days to go. So I mean, it looks like it's doing
I
really
sure hope
well.
so, and I hope we can get some more clicks. Nothing's for sure, but we're excited. We're in our second week, and our third week begins on Monday after this recording, and it ends on September 1st, I should say. So everyone, please check out killerbad.com and check out all of our rewards. We've got a really cheap buy-in option where you just get the digital comic for $3. Um, and and then it goes up from there. We've got our regular cover, and then we've got a Kickstarter exclusive cover that is a recreation of the Friday the 13th movie poster, but with our characters and title in it instead. you know, you can, if you look further down on the Kickstarter, you can see a scan of the original piece of art by Paul Sciarvino, where he draws, you know, in ink all those flowers and tree trunks, and in the shape of a man, like in the Friday the 13th poster. And it is a beautiful piece of artwork that is already sold.
That's awesome. Yeah. And if you guys want to go to the Kickstarter, you can definitely go like on kickstarter.com/project/killerbad. That's where you can definitely find our killerbad.com. Is it killerbad.com?
Yeah, killerbad.com takes you directly linked to it.
Wow, I'm looking at some of the pledges here too, and like, you know, definitely for $3 you can just get a copy of the PDF, and then one MP3 of the Americans UK song. I heard you're a part of that band too, right?
Yes, that was my sci-fi rock band.
Sci-fi rock band.
Yes, that's right. My sci-fi rock band. That's how I first started making comics. Was I self-published the Sci-Fi Adventures of said band.
That is awesome, dude.
And thank you. And so in our Kickstarter video, we have we used a couple Americans UK songs as bed music, and so they at the lowest level at $3 you get one of our sci-fi rock songs called Time Bum, and then every level up from that you get the second song, which was a song called Immaculate Sanchez, and so you get both of those at every level. Then we've got the regular cover, which I think that's at maybe $8 for a print copy.
Yeah, it looks like $10 according to this for the regular cover.
Good, and then it goes from there. And then we've got that Kickstarter exclusive cover, which I think is beautiful. It's going to look really good if we hit a certain stretch goal. If we make our mountain that hit stretch goal, we're going to make that cover glow in the dark, where everything that you see, that like the white outline, will be glow in the dark, to get that extra 90s gimmick cover thing going. You can. There's one level where you can just get the poster you can get the Friday the 13th ripoff poster as a part of the package. And we've got one commission left from Jason. We might even have to up it, because we had 4 available and 3 are gone, for $300 for an amazing full body, simple background ink on bristleborn commission. Any character you want. If you're an indie comics writer, maybe get your OC, your original character made in Jason's kind of dark and gritty style.
Yeah, it's such a cool style. I mean, definitely pledge, people. I mean, this is like a really awesome comic. I mean, the art, if you guys really like comic book art, I mean, this is like Liefeld-esque. I mean, a lot of, it looks really awesome in my opinion. I mean, I especially like the part where they're jumping off from the is that a C-17, or it looks like a?
I'll have to ask Jason. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know planes very well. But no, it looks epic though.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an amazing. Jason is doing the work. He's really changed up his style. If you look back and forth between the commissions that he has, he usually has kind of a darker, grittier style, and he really kind of, added some manga influences to get that kind of 90s image look.
Yeah, I noticed there's some of his like sketches of Batman, the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow, that looked really epic. Really gritty.
So that's his more traditional style, and he's also changing his style for each of the chapters, kind of match the new genre and the new story ideas. So we're really trying to elevate what at first blush looks like a very simple story.
That's cool. Well, we're about to end the podcast really soon. Do you have any additional comments or any final thoughts?
If you like superheroes, you like gore, you like action, and
I do.
and you like a little self-awareness in your comics, please check out killerbad.com and help us make our goal. Otherwise, it was a pleasure talking to you. I have this project that I would love to talk about, but we haven't been given okay by the publisher yet. So maybe I'll write you once I can, and I can come back on perhaps.
Yeah, we'll totally love to have you back on. And speaking of which,
Thank you.
where can people find you? Like, what is your social media?
Yeah, I'm all over. Like I said, I was in the band Americans UK, so like all my at tags are at JEF_UK at Jeff UK with one F. You can also go to my website, Jeff Wrights. That's with one F, JEFWRITES.com. Go to jeffwrights.com. What's prominent right now, obviously, is Killer Bad, but you can see a lot of my other work. I have a graphic novel out with Oni Press called Oddschnauze and the Odd Squad, as drawn by Dennis Culver with colors by Ramon Villalobos. That's still available, and yeah, it's 1999 for a 160-page graphic novel that you can find for much cheaper online, I'm sure.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being on the Earth 60 Comics Wire podcast. If you want to follow the podcast, you can go on at Earth 16 podcast on Twitter and on Instagram. And you can also find me on my personal account at Brian of Earth 16 on Twitter and as well as Instagram as well. And yeah, you can listen to us on YouTube, Twitch, or you can also listen to us on Spotify and Anchor. Thank you so much all for listening. And once more, Jeff, thank you for being on. This is Brian
Thank you,
from Route
Brian.
16, and this is Jeff signing out.